In my 5th year with Harry, he gave me a spectacular proposal. But just the night before our wedding, I caught him pinning his foster sister against a wall, saying, "I'm with her just to keep her away from Ethan. Do you really want to watch me marry someone else?" I wasn't about to play a secondary role in their grand love story. As I was ready to call off the wedding, someone grabbed my wrist. They leaned in and whispered, "I'm planning to crash a wedding, want to join?" The night before the wedding, I was at the hotel to drop off Harry's wedding games. The hotel elevator was being serviced, and Harry wasn't answering his phone. With no other choice, I took the stairs to his floor. As soon as I stepped out of the stairwell, I saw Harry with a woman pinned against the wall. Our special ringtone was still playing from his raised phone. I froze. Harry didn't notice me. He was holding the woman's wrist, looking intense. "You said you wanted to see Ethan. So I proposed to Lisa to spread the word in the media. You said you liked him. So I chased Lisa to keep her from Ethan. But Rachel, do you really want me to marry someone else?" The woman struggled a bit, revealing half of her face. My blood went cold. It was Harry's foster sister, Rachel. Rachel glanced in my direction, a subtle smirk on her face. Then she looked back at Harry, eyes red. Clinging to his shirt, she cried, "Brother, I know you're with Lisa for me, but I don't want you to sacrifice your happiness for me. Brother, run away from the wedding." Harry snapped, kissing Rachel passionately. They stumbled into a room, locked in an embrace. I couldn't hold it anymore. Doubled over, dry heaving. I met Harry 6 years ago. I was left alone at a bar with a spiked drink, and at my most vulnerable, Harry saved me. He got me to the hospital and stayed by my side all night. When I woke up, he soberly recounted the night's danger. I only felt gratitude towards him then, but from that day, Harry slowly seeped into my life, always coincidentally meeting me and sharing my interests, dressed just the way I liked. His actions seemed calculated, so I kept my guard up. He was patient, pursuing me for over a year. During that year, my skepticism faded. After all, Harry was the eldest of the wealthy and powerful Wall Street Harry family, and undeniably handsome. I had nothing worth pursuing, so I tried opening up to him, and our relationship grew into romance. That was 5 years ago. 2 months ago, Harry proposed to me in an extravagant way. I heard he spent over half a year preparing for it. I stood there, staring blankly at the closed door, unable to reconcile the man who vowed eternal love to me with the one who just kissed his foster sister. If I hadn't come tonight, they'd likely plot to humiliate me after their tryst. I straightened up, wiped my tears, and headed for the wedding hall. Looking at a picture of Harry, once full of love for me, I took scissors and shredded it to pieces. Turning around, I saw the flowers Harry picked himself. I yanked them off. Harry had already paid for the wedding arrangements, so no guilt on my part. After half an hour of destruction, I felt a bit better. I called a couple of guys to completely trash all the decorations before dawn. As I left, a cold breeze hit me and I shivered. I stopped when a coat was gently draped over my shoulders. I recognized the face and paused. It was Ethan, the same guy Harry mentioned with Rachel. Seeing my messy state, Ethan hesitated. "Aren't you getting married tomorrow? Why are you crying?" Before I could respond, he added, "Did that jerk make you upset?" Thinking about what I witnessed, my stomach churned. Ethan noticed my reaction, and was about to confront Harry. I grabbed his arm. "No need, the wedding's off." Ethan stopped, looking at me puzzled. An awkward silence stretched between us. Ethan and I had been neighbors growing up, but he moved abroad once Harry came into my life. I hadn't heard of him returning, so I wondered where this rumor of me bothering Ethan started. After a while, Ethan asked, "What happened?" It wasn't my fault, and Harry didn't deserve my protection. Plus, Ethan was partly involved, so I told him everything. Ethan paused. "What a mess. They pull others into their dirt. That's disgusting." I smirked. "Isn't that the truth? We're all just pawns in their dramatic love play." Ethan looked at me intently. After what felt like forever, he said, "I'm planning to crash the wedding tomorrow." Interested, he seemed tense, lips pressed tight, avoiding my gaze. Seeing my hesitation, he continued, "Doesn't Rachel like me? Liked me enough to have Harry chase you to keep us apart. Imagine if I were your groom instead. Doesn't that sound interesting?" I looked down, my mind racing. That sure sounds satisfying. But what then? What do I do next? Thinking of it, I shook my head. "I'll just tell everyone the wedding's off. Thanks for the offer, anyway," I said, turning to leave. Ethan quickly blocked my way. He was so frantic, he started stuttering. Actually, I need a favor from you." I paused and looked at him. Ethan spoke rapidly. "It's just disgusting to be liked by someone like her. So, could you just act like you're helping me and get rid of her clinging to me? As for what happens next, we can wait until after the wedding to let everyone know we've parted ways. This way, They won't have it all easy, plus we tackle immediate issues. He finished quickly, watching my reaction carefully. What do you think? Sounds good, but I pointed toward the banquet hall. I've already had people tear down the wedding setup. By now, it should all be done. Once the money's there, things move fast. Ethan smirked. Easy peasy, leave it to me. Ethan made full use of his cash skills. By the next morning, the wedding setup was ready at another hotel. Our mutual friend of Harry and I was taken aback when they received the last-minute location update. When they saw Ethan as the groom in the wedding photos at the entrance, they were even more confused. They sneaked into my dressing room while guests were distracted and asked what was going on. I looked at my reflection in the mirror and smiled. The groom's been swapped. Hearing this, they exchanged glances. After a while, a girl cautiously asked, "You finally figured it out?" I was slightly taken aback. Someone nudged her arm, signaling her to stop talking. Ignoring it, she sighed in relief. Actually, when Harry proposed, I caught. Seeing my calm demeanor, she gritted her teeth and spilled it all. I saw Harry kissing Rachel, but it was too dark, and I didn't have proof to tell you directly. I said nothing. It's gross. Harry promising me the world and sneaking around with Rachel. But besides feeling gross, there was nothing else. I gave her a reassuring smile. It's okay. Don't worry about it. Finally reassured, she began praising my makeup and dress. As the chat got livelier, Ethan knocked gently. The ceremony's about to start. Ready. Seeing him in his outfit, a silence fell in the room. Soon, friends found reasons to leave for their seats. Ethan's icy demeanor fell away. He stared at me through the mirror. I felt uncomfortable under his gaze and wiggled my fingers at him. How'd you find this ring on such short notice? Fits just right. He jolted at my question, quickly looking away. A bit awkward. Borrowed it from someone. I nodded, not prying further. The wedding went surprisingly smoothly. With Ethan holding my hand the whole time, my nerves slowly settled. Until the ceremony ended, and we were headed to the party afterward. Just outside the hotel, Helen's relatives were waiting outside the banquet hall. As soon as the door opened, Helen pointed at me, furious. We prepped so long for this wedding, and you not only destroyed it, you even changed venues and swapped the groom last minute. Ethan's brows furrowed, about to speak, but I stopped him. I looked Helen in the eyes. Your son conned me into marriage and then eloped with someone else. Why should I stay at the wedding venue to be laughed at? This made the relatives whisper amongst themselves. Conned into marriage. What does that mean? Eloping. So it's Harry's fault. Yeah, if Harry wasn't in the wrong, why disappear on his big day? And you notice, someone's missing today. The relatives scanned the area, quickly piecing it together. Normally cozy Rachel, usually by Helen's side, was absent too. Listening to the murmurs, Helen's face went pale. Eloped? That's not what he told me. He said Rachel had a car accident and he had to. She cut herself off. It was all clear now. Harry had fled, leaving the blame squarely on me to save face. Ethan snorted. Car accident. Check hospital records then. And you Helen, no one else could take her to the hospital. Helen slowly calmed down. She looked at me directly. Lisa, so is it true? She struggled to find words, finally closing her eyes before speaking. Did Harry really run away? I nodded. Yes, and Rachel's the reason he ran. Helen almost lost her balance. Regaining composure after some time, she said, I was too impulsive. I apologize for that. Ethan's expression was still sour, but he stayed silent. With things as they were, Helen left with her relatives. Ethan and I were unaffected, and we moved on with friends to the next venue. The lively mood lifted the gloom in my heart, and I joined in the festivities. But after a few drinks, some friends hyped up about seeing mine and Ethan's marriage license. Someone mumbled, Ethan, the Ice King. Let's see his face on a marriage certificate. Hardly said when another retorted, Ice King. Didn't you see he hasn't stopped smiling at Lisa all night? I couldn't help but glance over at Ethan from afar. Sure enough, my gaze met his in the air. He looked like he was shocked, quickly looked away, and downed his drink in one go. Someone, fueled by alcohol, called him over, insisting on seeing the marriage certificate. Ethan walked over and casually said, we didn't get the license yet. Seeing everyone's expressions turn weird, I quickly added, it's not the right date yet. We're having the wedding first and then getting the papers. Hearing me explain, they didn't press further, just said we must tweet the certificate when we get it. Things calmed down. Ethan sat next to me, hands on his knees, a bit nervous as he spoke. What you just said, is it true? I hesitated. I think we should skip it, don't you? The wedding's already over. Ethan lowered his eyelashes, keeping his emotions unreadable. But they said they wanted to see our marriage certificate. What if we never get it? I stayed silent. Stalling wasn't going to work on them. As long as they didn't see the photos, they wouldn't let it go. Sensing my mood, Ethan suggested, we could actually get the license. It'd make it more convincing. We can always switch it later once all this blows over. Raising an eyebrow at him. But isn't this stuff already blown over? Ethan looked a bit uneasy under my gaze. Nah, it isn't. He'll definitely be back causing trouble. He was still racking his brain for excuses, but I cut him off. Then let's get it. The next time I heard from Harry was after Ethan and I got the license. I wasn't really interested in his business, but Ethan had mentioned a thing or two. I heard that after Helen left the hotel that day, she couldn't get in touch with Harry or Rachel. After hearing what Ethan and I said that day, she was furious and froze their cards. But what really happened, no one told Harry. Once his cards were frozen, Harry and Rachel couldn't hold on for long. Harry figured his running out on the wedding had me feeling bad, which is why Helen was so angry. Trying to calm his mom, he sent me an apology text. Lisa, I'm sorry for hurting you. Seeing this message, I realized I forgot to block him. Before doing so, I replied, if you're sorry, go to hell. Then I blocked him without hesitation. Right after shutting off my phone, Helen texted. She said it was her fault, that she raised him wrong and it hurt me. So she demanded Harry win my forgiveness. She even hoped we could get back together. Ethan glimpsed the message and rather snidely said, bigamy's illegal, you know. I nodded. Oh, I'd figured out a while ago. He insisted on getting the license to cut the last tie to Harry getting back together with me. But honestly, he overestimated my feelings for Harry. I'm not a trash can for disgusting people. Thinking about it, I wrote a long message to Helen. Auntie, there's no chance for Harry and me. I'm married now, so let's not stay in touch. Once it's sent, I blocked her too. I wasn't blind to Helen's little schemes. When she first confronted me at the hotel, she already knew it was Harry who ditched the wedding, but she didn't think it was a big deal. What angered her more was me quickly swapping in a new groom. But when she found out Harry bailed because of Rachel, things changed. She needed me to reconcile with Harry to cover up the scandal. She even put her pride aside for it. Seeing all I'd done, Ethan smiled slightly, but tried to hide it when I looked at him. You're smart. Figured out her plan. I frowned. Try again with the compliment. Ethan cleared his throat. You're really not dumb. I turned away without even a glance. Move your stuff to the guest room. Ethan seemed confused. Why? I smiled. Because I don't want to see you. 2 days later, I got a message from my best friend. She seemed pretty excited, sending several long voice notes. Once her messages slowed down, I started listening to the first one. Lisa, you wouldn't believe how awesome that was. Harry must have thought you were at my place and came knocking, asking where you were. I straight up told him you're married. Guess he didn't believe me, but I gave him a good scolding. Finally chased him out with a broom. Remembering her past heroic acts, I couldn't help but chuckle. I trust your battle skills. She sent another voice note. Hee, just watch out. If he shows up at your place, make sure Ethan steps in to kick him out. Don't get hurt. Feeling warm inside, I replied with a hug emoji. After verifying with who knows how many people, Harry showed up at my door. He instinctively tried to unlock the door with his fingerprint, but couldn't. He tried multiple times until the door lock started blaring an alarm, then stopped and started knocking. But after a long while, nobody answered. Harry wasn't used to this. He used to just come over, and I would go downstairs to meet him. Half an hour later, having lost all patience, he started pounding on the door, furious. Lisa, I could faintly hear Rachel trying to calm him down. Bro, be careful. Watch your hand. Ethan came out of the shower and walked straight to the door to open it. He looked Harry up and down and asked, what do you want with my wife? Harry and Rachel were both stunned. A minute later, Rachel let out an excited scream and rushed toward him. Brother, you're back. Ethan stepped back to avoid her, looking completely disgusted. I don't have a sister. Don't call me that. Rachel was momentarily awkward. Before she could say anything, Ethan asked again, why are you looking for my wife? Harry finally caught on. He couldn't believe it and spoke up. Lisa really got married to you? Rachel's smile froze. She kept denying. No way. Absolutely not. How could you marry Lisa? She looked at Ethan, seeking confirmation. Brother, are you joking? Harry refused to believe it. He pushed past Ethan, trying to get inside to find me. But Ethan didn't move an inch, and Harry instead stumbled back. Lisa couldn't have married you. That's impossible. Ethan was done talking. He just pulled out 2 bright red marriage certificates from his pocket. To prevent Harry from grabbing them, he even opened them. See clearly. Lisa, my wife, legally. Rachel stared hard at those 2 marriage certificates, screaming hysterically. How could you marry Lisa? How dare you? Harry frowned slightly and scolded her softly. Rachel. Rachel acted like she couldn't hear him, repeating herself over and over. Harry snapped back and tried to rush in again, I don't believe this. Let me see Lisa, let me see her. I feared Ethan might struggle handling them alone, so I wanted to check the situation. But as soon as I stepped out of the room, I saw Ethan lift his long leg and kick Harry quite far back. He then swiftly shut the door. I was dumbfounded. Just like that, Ethan turned and saw me, instinctively shoving the marriage certificates back into his pocket. I frowned. Didn't I put those away? Why are you carrying them with you? Ethan avoided eye contact. Your friend messaged me to protect you. I figured he might come by. His voice got lower. Isn't this more effective than arguing with him? Harry seemed to have heard my voice and started pounding on the door. Lisa, did you marry Ethan just to make me regret it? I rolled my eyes and ignored him. Harry soon had no time to question me further, because even through the door, I heard Rachel yelling at him. Didn't you say they'd never cross paths? Why are they married? It's all your fault, you worthless fool. Harry seemed embarrassed, coaxing and dragging Rachel away forcefully. Ethan and I moved away from the monitor. Ethan's expression was quite indescribable. She actually has a crush on me. That's terrifying. I nodded in agreement. Then Ethan changed the subject. Good thing you saved me. If you hadn't agreed to marry me, I'd be haunted by that nutcase. I raised an eyebrow. So how are you going to thank me? Ethan peeked out the door to make sure they were gone, then undid the first button of his shirt. If you don't mind, I could. He didn't finish those 4 words, but I instantly got it. Blushing, I grabbed a nearby pillow and threw it at him. Ethan. Ethan dodged slightly to avoid my attack. I glared at him and turned back to my study to continue working. Ethan soon followed me in. He didn't say anything, just watched me quietly. It wasn't until I saved my work and turned off the computer that he spoke. I think those two might come back. Should we go on a honeymoon getaway? It'd be a good way to avoid them. I nodded in agreement. Avoidance really was the best strategy. Facing off with 2 lunatics head-on was a stupid thing to do. Ethan and I quickly agreed and booked a flight for the evening. By the time the monitor sent another alert, Ethan and I had already landed in the neighboring state. The first thing we did upon landing was head to a famous local escape room. I'd seen countless rave reviews about it online, but had never gone, only because Rachel claimed she was scared, and Harry took it off our schedule. I shook my head to dispel thoughts of those annoying people, focusing on the puzzles. The room wasn't too difficult, so Ethan and I didn't spend much time there. Everything was going smoothly, until an NPC suddenly jumped out from a side room as we were about to exit. Startled, I screamed and buried my head in Ethan's chest. Ethan, caught off guard, took a step back and bumped against a sharp decoration behind him. He let out a low hiss, yet he still held me tightly with his other hand. My heart was racing, but I eventually calmed down. As we stepped out into the bright light outside the escape room, I noticed a small blood stain on Ethan's back. I gently tugged his hand. Ethan, you're hurt. Ethan took my hand in his, smiling. It's not a big deal. We just need some ointment for it. I quickly searched on my phone, then dragged Ethan into the nearest pharmacy. As soon as we got back to the hotel, I insisted he take off his shirt. Unexpectedly, Ethan's ears turned red. I can handle it myself. I nodded, handing over the ointment and cotton balls. Sure, I'd love to see you do it. The spot where he was injured was impossible for him to reach on his own. Ethan stubbornly tried multiple times, but never quite succeeded. The meds didn't even go on correctly, not to mention it hurt a bit at the wound. Watching him closely, I caught his eyes shifting and suddenly he let out a dramatic ouch sound. I grabbed the medicine with a bit of attitude and helped put it on him. Ethan's quite the crafty one. Not only did he grunt delicately in pain throughout my bandaging, but he let out all these little pained gasps. At first, I didn't think much of it, and just instinctively blew on it to ease the sting. When he did it again and again, I got wise. I purposely poked him where there was no injury. Sure enough, Ethan yelped. I neatly gathered the cotton balls and ointment and fixed him with a look. Ethan. He didn't seem to notice anything amiss. Yeah. I poked him harder in the back. You're yelling in pain from a spot that's not even hurt. Ethan's face froze, and he answered honestly, I forgot. He sneaked a glance at me, carefully. You seem so worried. I thought it was pretty serious. He was trying to play the injury angle for some sympathy. Turns out he was barely hurt at all. I laughed silently, not responding. Ethan must have thought I was angry or something, so he hurried to explain. It wasn't on purpose when I bumped into it. He wasn't wearing a shirt, and when he turned like that, his abs were right there in my view. For a moment, I couldn't look away. Ethan caught on fast. The sympathy act wasn't working on me much, but flaunting his looks might. So, he didn't show any change on his face, but from that point on, he kept finding reasons to show off. Oops, forgot my towel after the shower. or suddenly changing clothes right in front of me. By day 3 of this routine, I couldn't stand it anymore and tackled him. Ethan took advantage and teased. Close to my ear, he whispered as I was drifting off. If I knew you were into this, I would have tried seducing you 5 years ago. By the time he said that, I was too sleepy to really catch it. On the 7th day of my honeymoon with Ethan, Harry called again. This time, he was cautious. Somebody else spoke first, and only after my response did he take the phone. He even tried changing his voice, so I wouldn't recognize it. He started quickly. Lisa, I realized I was wrong. I shouldn't have bailed for Rachel, and I shouldn't have hurt you for her. Lisa, I cut him off. Harry, I saw and heard you two kissing right outside your door that day. His excuses stopped short. Not waiting for more, I hung up and blocked the new number too. Ethan frowned. He's still not giving up. I shrugged. Maybe he's regretting it. But why should I care if he regrets it? That night, coming back from a walk with Ethan, someone blocked our path. It was Rachel. Seeing our clasped hands, she looked furious. Let go of him. Let go. Ethan slightly frowned and instinctively put himself between me and her. This only triggered Rachel more. Pointing at me, she shouted, Lisa, my brother saved you back then. How can you just ditch him? Ethan and I just kept backing away without much fuss. We were trying to make a break for the room while she was ranting, but every step we took back, she moved forward. Eventually, she reached out to grab Ethan's hand. Ethan, don't stay with Lisa. She was drugged once, and my brother is the one who saved her. I laughed outright. So, I owe him my life, and what? Marry him? Even after you two kiss in front of me, I'm supposed to cheer for that? What era does she think we're living in? Rachel seemed hit where it hurt, shaking her head. It's not like that, Ethan, I didn't. Someone like Harry isn't my type. Just then, Harry's voice came from behind. Rachel. He looked at her with so much disappointment. Rachel flinched, but, seeing us with Ethan, quickly stiffened again. I really don't care about you. If I didn't need you to get rid of Lisa, I wouldn't be hanging around you all day. You're useless, Harry. I gave you so many good ideas, and you still couldn't pull it off. Watching them get married. Harry, I hate you. Harry's face turned icy. Right in front of both Ethan and me, they started turning on each other. Harry walked up to her and grabbed her neck, teeth gritted. You like Ethan so much. Why didn't you tell him you framed it? That you drugged Lisa, and had me rescue her? Seeing Ethan's growing disdain, Rachel rushed. No, Ethan, he's lying. Ethan jerked away from her. You and I have nothing to do with each other. Don't call me that. It's disgusting. Harry looked at us, then back at Rachel, unable to believe. He's not really your boyfriend. You tricked me. Rachel avoided eye contact, not daring to face Harry. At this point, what didn't Harry get? He shoved Rachel aside, then tried to grab my hand. Lisa, she deceived me. She told me Ethan was her boyfriend, and you were desperately trying to take him away. That's why I got close to you. That's why I ran away from the wedding. Lisa, I was just blinded. Can you forgive me, please? Ethan kicked him right in the chest. So you drugged my wife, and dared to impersonate me. I looked up sharply at Ethan. Harry stared at Ethan in shock. It was you. I finally pieced it all together. Ethan was the one who saved me back then. But Harry took on his identity, and under Rachel's influence, used it as an excuse to get close to me. Everything started with Rachel's lies. I took a deep breath and turned off the recording. Ethan, call the police. Ethan nodded and dialed the number. Rachel rushed forward, trying to snatch the phone away. You can't call the police, you can't. Harry grabbed her, grinning like a devil from hell. Scared now. If Lisa won't forgive me, then you won't have a good time either. While they were tangled up, Ethan finished the call. Rachel tried to run but couldn't get away. In desperation, she picked up a nearby brick and smashed it hard over Harry's head. While hitting him, she kept muttering, "It's all because you're stupid. You believe whatever I say. If you promised to help me, you should see it through." Afraid she'd turn on me next, Ethan took advantage and pinned her hands behind her back. The sound of sirens was approaching fast. Rachel pointed at Harry on the ground. It was him. I did nothing. Almost simultaneously, Ethan and I pulled out our phones. We've got recordings. She admitted it herself. Rachel's face turned visibly pale. By the time we got back to the hotel, it was late at night. I finally asked the question gnawing at me. If you were the one back then, why didn't you tell me? Ethan sighed, looking slightly aggrieved. After I dropped you at the hospital, my mom fell seriously ill. You seemed safe for the moment, so I went home to check on her. When I saw you again later, you were trailing happily after Harry. I didn't know it was all his and Rachel's doing. Seeing you so in love with him, I left the country to nurse my broken heart. Then Frost told me something was off between Harry and Rachel. so I rushed back and saw you crashing the wedding. Frost was the one who saw those two kissing. I asked, what's the deal with you and Rachel anyway? I've always thought she seemed a bit unhinged, claiming I was constantly pestering Ethan and ruining their relationship. Ethan had a pained expression. It was 1 year during Harry's birthday. She seemed to fall for me at first sight. Since then, she was all over me. He left the country partly because seeing me with Harry was too much. Also, to escape Rachel's clinging. I nestled into his arms. No wonder when we finally met again, you immediately said you wanted to crash my wedding. So you've been planning this for a while. Ethan huffed proud. I was ready to quietly wish you well, but that jerk did it to himself. He leaned down, kissing me, but we were meant to be a pair. We recorded her at the same time without even planning it. From the moment Harry appeared, I felt something was off, so I started recording on my phone. Didn't think it would actually help, but those two just kept confessing. By the end, they'd sold each other out completely. With these recordings, they won't be out anytime soon. Plus, Ethan and I heard later that Rachel hit Harry pretty hard. Helen, seeing the mess, decided enough was enough. She had taken Rachel in out of kindness, and Rachel not only used her son, but tarnished their family name. In the end, she even turned on him, hitting Harry like that. Rachel thought playing crazy could save her. Helen quickly cut ties, publicly disowned her, and made it clear she'd never reconcile. She also used her family's influence. Safe to say, Rachel's life won't be pleasant. Seeing Ethan being smug, I remembered some of those moments he played hard to get. I felt like teasing him. I pulled away slightly, pretending to take off my ring. By the way, you said you borrowed this ring from someone else. Better give it back. Barely getting the ring halfway off, Ethan reached out and pushed it back on. He grit his teeth, looking at me. Didn't you notice our initials engraved inside? And who else could I borrow a ring from that fits so well? I played dumb. You said it yourself. Oh, and you also said after everything's settled, div. Before I could finish, Ethan shut me up with a kiss. He didn't let go until I was weak in the knees. You believe whatever I say. Then, I say tonight. His voice dropped for the last few words, and I pushed him away, heading for the door. Denied. Ethan pulled me back by the waist. Didn't catch that. Eventually, I didn't even have the strength to nibble at him. I swear, starting tomorrow, Ethan will sleep in a separate room. But before I could even put my foot down, Ethan made me realize actions speak louder than words. You just can't say certain things lightly.